Good to be here at the 66th Boys States graduation. 850 delegates who participated for the last 6 days in learning about leadership and the democratic process. Learning, as Mr. Bagatelle told you early at the beginning of this week, to be respectful, to get involved, to not be discouraged, and to try your best. And I'm sure you've taken his words to heart and followed his lead, and that has given you a tremendously enriching opportunity. I first want to thank the men and women of the American Legion for their service to our country over many, many years, in the sacrifices of service to the uniform of the United States, and in a continuing engagement in preparing the next generation of leadership. So please join me in thanking the American Legion. It is by their example that when I think about how we treat those who have worn the uniform of the United States of America in service to their country, that I believe that yes, we go to a Memorial Day observance, and yes, we go to a Veterans Day observance, but how we respect them is how we treat them in their health care, how we treat them in their disabilities, and how we take care of those families who ultimately, because they committed the ultimate sacrifice, are left behind. And that is a grateful nation, and that is my focus every day in the United States. As an alumnus of Boys State, it's a tremendous group of volunteers who really have a passion for making a difference. And it's an honor for me to be here as you celebrate this accomplishment. And make no mistake, it is an accomplishment, one that you will remember all of your life, as I have. So let me congratulate each and every one of you for being part of a successful program and a graduating class here at Boys State. Now, I may not have wound up as one of the senators who went to Boys Nation. I was a judge. But here I am now, a United States Senator from New Jersey. So all of you who ran for higher office and didn't get the one you wanted this time, be patient, stick to it, it will happen along the way. As Mr. Bagatelle said, you know, I grew up poor in a tenement in Union City, the son of political refugees, the first in my family to go to college and then go to law school. If you told me when I was your age that I would rise to become one of 100 United States senators in a country of 308 million people, I would have told you at that part of my life that is highly unlikely. But it is the promise of America fulfilled. It is a promise that started here in Boys State, and it is a promise that I fight every day to keep true for future generations of New Jerseyans and Americans. So take it from me that it is possible that one of you could rise one day to be the governor of New Jersey, to perhaps serve in Congress, or serve New Jersey proudly as I have in the United States Senate. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a future Supreme Court Justice, a Secretary of State, a four-star general, or perhaps a future President of the United States sitting in the audience who will lead the nation and help change the world. Remember that I told you that here today. Now, what you have learned here will be an experience that will last a lifetime. You may not think about it right now at this moment that way, but I can tell you, for me, it was a chance to learn the art of public policy and civic life, to understand the importance not only of the issues, but of tolerance and civility in expressing your views in a debate. I learned the meaning of compromise and the wisdom of our founders in founding a more perfect union. Boys State was for me a hands-on civic lesson. I'm grateful for the experience and thankful for the people I met who have gone on to do some amazing things. people with whom I still kept in touch and still consider in many cases close friends to this day. And I hope that you will do the same, to keep in touch with those who you have met here over the last 6 days. Many of them will be friends for life, because you've shared something special at Boys State, the experience of a lifetime that is instilled in you, whether you realize it or not, a close bond and qualities of leadership that will make an extraordinary difference in your lives. During these intense 6 days of college-level work, you've learned the unique idea that is American democracy, and the values and ideals it represents. At a time when we hear so many shrill voices raised in anger, intolerant voices on both sides of the political spectrum, when so many Americans are skeptical of our institutions and our political process, Boys State holds a valuable lesson, and that is that good and decent government, led by good and decent men and women, unified by their common concerns and values, not divided by their differences, can help change a nation and the world. You are those leaders, and each one of you has the power to do that within you. It is just upon you to call upon yourself to use what you've learned here and use it in the days ahead. When I left Boys State, my life changed. I've often told this story here before other graduating classes, so for all of the volunteers who probably heard it, they'll excuse me, but for many of you it'll be the first time. It is an example of what I learned here going to be put to use right away. I left here as a junior, went back to my high school my senior year. I was told that I could be in the senior honors program because of my grades and participation, but I had to come up with $200 for the books in a public high school. My parents were poor, we didn't have $200 for the books, and I couldn't understand for the life of me, if I had the ability and the grades and not the money, that I'd be barred from being in the honors program. So I created such a ruckus that they gave me the books, told me to shut up, and put me in the honors program. And I didn't feel right about that, because I had friends who had the ability and the grades. They also did not have the money, but they didn't say anything, and they didn't get in. And it seemed to me that a publicly funded education system should not be in the business of choosing between the haves and the have-nots, but that books should be available to anyone who shows ability and talent and determination to succeed. That public education system should not be about picking winners and losers, but about fairness, based on merit, not money, not influence, not power. Fairness is a basic American value and a pillar of our system of justice. And so when I went on to college, I started a petition drive to change the school board from one that was appointed by a very corrupt mayor to one that was elected by the public at the age of 19, got thousands of signatures with a group of my friends on the petition referendum, put the referendum on the ballot, passed it at 19, and then ran for the first school board elections in my hometown at the age of 20. And I ended up running because the other person chose the same term of office I was looking for against a priest, which in those days were allowed to run for public office. And I won, for which I'm still paying in church today. And that was the beginning of using what I learned here in Boys State to make change. And so I say to you, your journey begins today. And I know it will lead to the realization of your dreams and an American promise that is fulfilled for each of you as it was for me. It is a promise that we will have to work hard to protect in these difficult economic times when working families are struggling to make ends meet, keep their jobs, their health care, and their homes. We've seen that the democratic process in dealing with these issues can be messy. And democracy is not easy. Democracy is hard in its application. We have to work at it. It demands serious people coming together and working together. It demands tolerance, civility, sometimes heated debate, And in the end, it requires consensus and compromise, none of which are easy in the midst of competing political philosophies and perspectives. There are those who fundamentally have different views than the ones you may hold, diametrically opposed to your own, but it is incumbent on all of us to work to find the middle ground. This week, you've learned about the process and the challenges that we face both as a state and a nation. You learned about the leadership skills it takes to find the common ground on issues that can help us succeed as a country. You've engaged in debate, discussed issues from the left and the right, from the far left and the far right, and every point in between. You have believed, often very passionately, in your views. You have strong views and clear ideas. And I'm sure you've seen how difficult it can be to reach consensus, because as deeply as you believe in your position and are willing to defend it with every fiber of your being, those with whom you disagree are equally willing to defend their position. And that's what we're facing in Washington today. We may have conflicting opinions as to how to meet these challenges, but what we share are common values. They are American values, and it is those values that should guide us. So, in my advice to all of you, that as you move forward from this experience, that you base your decisions not simply on your politics or only on the bottom line, but on the values we share as a people and as a nation. What we believe is fair and just and right, not just for some of us, but for all of us. If you do that, you will be an extraordinary generation of American leaders. You'll bring people together to meet every challenge. You'll raise the level of debate and make your decisions from a position of moral strength. And you will need every ounce of that moral strength to face the new challenges in the 21st century. Your challenges are more complex than ever before. And so there are many ways to serve, and this is where I want to close on. You've learned about serving in government. But don't forget the proud veterans and the members of the American Legion who work so hard for all of us to be here, to be able to enjoy the democracy that you have been learning about. They are a testament to the honor and dignity of serving in the armed forces of the United States. Our schools are crying out for the service of dedicated teachers to be able to fulfill the God-given capacity of each and every child who comes into that classroom. The safety of our communities depend on brave police and firefighters who respond in times of emergency. Our hospitals need doctors and nurses and technicians to keep us healthy and well. Our places of worship need clergy to lift our spirits and give us hope in our darkest hours. Our cities and towns, our neighborhoods and families need citizens like you to keep the spirit of community alive in this country. The need for each of us to work together for the betterment of all of us. The possibilities for serving are endless. Robert Kennedy once said on a trip to South Africa, when South Africa was still suffering under apartheid, something that has always moved me, and that I like to quote at times like these: it is about the power of youth and the importance of service to others. He said, each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. He believed in the power of youth, as do I, and in the power of each of us to change the world we inherit for the better, no matter how small we might think our contribution is. So if you put it in your mind and your heart, each of you can be a powerful force for change. Not next week, not in a few years once you've graduated college, but right now, right after this graduation. You are an exceptional group of New Jersey. You have come from every corner of New Jersey, from wealthy and working class families, from the streets of Newark to the farms of Sussex County. Whether you spend your life working in government or take another path, Remember the words you heard earlier this week from Mr. Bagatelle. Be respectful. Get involved. Don't get discouraged. And give it your absolute best. If you remember that, and you can continue to listen to the battle angels that is in each of us, and reach down for the best that is in all of us, you will be extraordinary leaders of tomorrow that can lead us to peace, prosperity, and bring us a new hope for a better world. Congratulations, Boy State 2000.